Let's be brutally honest right now. That's a big question.
I'm looking for someone who doesn't want to go to base camp, but they want to go to the very top.
Whether it's here, India, New York.
Civilization was born at happy hour.
That's what wins. That's what stands out. That's what people are interested in. That's what I want to know.
The Hospopreneurs Podcast with James Henderson.
Hello and welcome to episode 123 of the Hospopreneurs Podcast. Managing Director of Taylor's Wines, Mitchell Taylor follows in the footsteps of his father, Bill Taylor, and grandfather before him, Bill Taylor Sr., but his career began with a large stockbroking firm in London in the mid-80s. His passion for wine led him back to Australia, where he worked across all facets of the family business, from export and finance director to winemaker. Over 30 years later, he now oversees all aspects of the business. Mitchell has degrees in commerce and science and is deeply involved with key industry associations, including as a Director of Wine Australia and the Drinks Association, and founding and current Director of Australia's first families of wine. One of the first major companies to transition to the screw cap, Taylor's has continued to hold its strong international reputation as a highly regarded Australian wine company. I'll also mention that Taylor's were kind enough to send me a box of assorted wines after recording, 2 of which I'll be cellaring and the rest were delicious. Enjoy the episode today. Hello and welcome to the show, Mitchell.
Thanks, James. Great to be here.
Mitchell, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. I'm very excited to crack into the interview with you. Taylor's have an incredible brand, and you've been someone who has driven a lot of that. It's this family name that you're carrying. So I'm very interested in your story and how you've come to do what it is that you do. But before I open up with what it is that you do, there are a couple of questions that I like to get into just before then. And the first is a crazy hospitality story or exceptional hospitality experience. So which one, firstly, would you like to go with that? And I'd love to hear your story there.
Yeah, crazy story. And look, the wine world is fantastic, as you get out and sell your wines. But I'll never forget the situation when I was on my first trip to Ireland. And Ireland was a great little market for us. And we were doing a winemaker's dinner, where we just go through the wines, match them with food, and had a great night. And the Irish, as they say, like good crack, and you always have fun with the Irish. We were up in Northern Ireland in Newry, and so we got all the bottles of wine, and at the time we had corks in these wines, so we just had the leftover corks, and we just put them in the back of the station wagon, and we're driving back to Dublin that day across the border. And I'll never forget, as we went across the border, all of a sudden, sirens blast out, big headlights come blasting onto our car. The police come out with their machine guns and their guard dogs because they looked in the back of the car and felt that we had Molotov cocktails in there. And it was got the heart beating really quickly from my first experience in Ireland. Yeah, I'll never forget crossing the Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland border in what we just thought was a standard crossing.
Wow, what a story there. And what happened? Were you off the hook? Did you talk yourself out of this one? Obviously, you didn't do anything wrong.
We quickly got out of the car, and when you see them asking you questions with guns there, we quickly pointed to say, that's just wine. I'm an Australian winemaker. They quickly got my accent, and then we all had a bit of a laugh about it. But when they saw it from their security, they were really concerned because this was the early 1990s, so there was a bit of activity that was still happening in that part of the world. So, yeah, we managed to laugh about it afterwards, but yeah, for a moment there, really got the heart pumping.
Oh my goodness, terrifying at the time though, I'm certain. I'm glad you got out of that one, Mitchell. Thank you for that story. I'd like to know why it is that you do what you do. And the words that I use to describe this are macro, wide scale. What is it on a really abstract level that really drives you? What is it that inspires you and that you're passionate about?
Well, what I love about the wine industry, and it's a passion that my father and grandfather instilled in me, but I really love the concept of it always being exciting, and that ability to actually plan something and plant it in a vineyard, start from scratch, and to know that you're creating something that people will enjoy for many years to come and something that you're building for future generations of your own family. So I find that really interesting, very stimulating, and very exciting because the journey of wine, as my father always told me, we are in a fashion business. We've always got to adjust to the trends out there, but it's just having that passion of creating something, then making it, and then sharing that passion with people on the other side of the globe that also love what you've created.
It's interesting there, that statement saying that you're in the fashion business. A little bit later in the episode, we'll touch on those trends and how you have adapted to those growing interest in specific consumer segments and then how they've flourished into really core components of the market. Before though, Mitchell, tell me a bit more about your experience going to London. You worked in stockbroking and then came back to Australia to work in the wine industry. What really drove that and then caused you to come back? And tell us about that experience that you had to really connect all that up and why stockbroking?
I was always fascinated with the business world. And when I left school, I did a commerce degree, but I loved the world and I loved to travel. So it was really an excuse to take time off after doing a uni degree before my 21st birthday and see the world. And what attracted me about stockbroking was that it was really analysing everything and no one had the answers. In fact, what I liked about it was the insights into new businesses all the time and what made the world work. And another amazing tale, I say, and I'm probably showing my age a bit, but I'll never forget as a young guy living through the stock market crash of 87. I remember talking to the really old guys in the firm and saying to them, gee, what's happened? The whole market's just crashed out of control. And I'll never forget these really experienced directors saying, wow, we've never seen it like this. We're not really sure. I just thought, gee, the world is an unpredictable place.
But from there, though, did you then and there, surely you didn't just stop. What was it after that? There's so much that I want to discuss there about, one, the unpredictable nature of the world and business and the market. And I think that can really lead us to talk about what's happening at the moment. But what was it there, just to continue with your story, that then caused you to come back to Australia?
I always loved Australia and I'd been overseas for 2 or 3 years. And being a young guy then, we didn't have the option of travel like we might have prior to coronavirus where you could jump on planes relatively quickly. So I knew this was going to be the great experience overseas. I'd always, having been brought up with the winery around, I'd always wanted to return to Australia and set up my career. So I got a transfer back. And I enjoyed being back in Australia after living overseas because it was those aspects you took for granted, the great outdoors or all your friends and the sporting, easy way of life that probably wasn't on tap all the time when I was overseas. I knew I would eventually come back. And when I came back, I was still enjoying my career of stockbroking and finance. It was interesting, although we'd got to a stage after the stockbroker crash that things were changing. I do tell the story that we had a small box arrived at the family business one day and no one knew what to do with what was in the box. And they just looked at it. My father said, look, would you come in and show everyone how to operate a computer? I'll come in for 2 or 3 months. I'll set up the computer for you, try to train a bit of the staff, and then I'll go on and do my other thing. But when I got into the family business and to see it from the inside, I just saw, gee, how fascinating it was, but also how there is so much that could be done to improve things.
Yes. In doing that, and I'm interested to know, when you're in broking, did you focus specifically on wine or anything with regards to those sorts of affiliated markets? Or was it more general and then you had to give that up to then work in the family business?
Yeah, I had to give that up. I can always remember when I was living in the UK going into some of the bowl shops and talking to them about wine because we had a family winery. But back then in the UK, I remember a lot of the cheeky bowl shop owners would go, hey, mate, don't you mean a 4X? Aussies don't make good wine. So I went, oh, gee, this shows you how quickly our industry has been able to communicate to the rest of the world that we do make good quality wine, because I think back in those days, Australia had that image of shadow cardboard and we only made beer out of Australia.
And so things have changed an incredible amount in a very short space of time. to put that into perspective, it's really not that long a period of time. You've been someone who's been able to shape that through your business too. So tell us a little bit more about the sorts of things that you've seen change over that time, some of the innovations that you've seen through the wine industry. And without focusing more specifically on what's happening at the moment, because I want to ask that next for you as well there, Mitchell, but some of the innovations you've seen that have changed the wine industry over that period that you've been in it.
Yeah, the quality on the innovation and what we're doing on the vineyards is incredible and probably a good symbol of some of the innovations that we've done. I'll never forget when I was at the Clare Valley winemakers meeting at our local pub just next to our winery, and we're all whinging about the quality of corks. And then we decided as a group of 12 winemakers there that there is some other technology. The corks do contribute to a lot of spoilage of cork taint and also oxidisation. So in that spot, we really decided to market the screw cap revolution that we created with our Rieslings back in 2000. And then it was terrific. This idea was quite, a few people were going, oh, I'm not sure. People perceive it as not a quality. But we all got together, took it to all the good journalists, and that little flicker of an idea then became a revolution around the whole wine world. So I often say to everyone that work at Taylor's, any ideas are good, and never think any little idea you can't change the world. Because to me, that demonstrates how something at a local level can really move on to become something significant in the wine world.
And what a fantastic job that you've done with that as well. And that got picked up by, as you said there, journalists. It got fed through the media, and it's almost the standard now. I would say it's the standard to have a screw top on wine. What about something that I've seen more recently is wine in a can? What's your sort of position on things like that? Cans have really made a comeback recently in the beer world, moving away from bottle usage. What about wine?
Yeah, wine. I think we're looking at the packaging, how to make it better. I think people are concerned about the carbon footprint, particularly with glass. Glass can take up a lot of energy. So people are experimenting. Again, the good old flag, and that was another great Australian wine innovation and invention about 50 years ago. And I think that's worked in certain segments. So going forward, there is still plenty of innovation. One thing we've just recently done is we've got temperature sensitive labels that change colour to make sure you're drinking the wine at the optimum drinking temperature. And this innovation really helps people enjoy the product that you have, because our research has shown people have been either drinking wine when it's too warm or when it's too cold.
That's excellent. Now, I've not heard of that. So how many other brands are doing that? I've not heard of temperature sensitive labels.
Yeah, we've led this innovation and it's starting to be popular. We've had a lot of other wineries ask us to share it, and some are starting to look at it. But it's really worked well for us. And we've done some exciting promotions where we've actually done like the old Pepsi challenge, where we serve up the wine at the right temperature and then warmed up, and we serve them blind so people don't know which wines they're drinking. And of course they prefer the one at the right temperature, but then when we reveal it's actually our same wine, people get extremely surprised.
And what about chilled wines are becoming more of a thing at the moment? I guess it's focusing a little bit too, maybe I'm keeping that line of thinking a little too time sensitive. It doesn't make it evergreen, but things have been happening in chilled wine. That's been becoming more of a thing more recently as well. And I'm interested to know, what are some other trends that you've been seeing that have really been emerging in the wine industry? And you traverse quite a broad spectrum of wines. What have you seen more? You can go specifically or generally, jump some of those other things that you might have seen as well, Mitchell.
Yeah, I think that you've got people wanting quality. You've got people wanting to enjoy wine with food. They're also looking for refreshing, lighter styles. So our Pinot Noirs, our Grenaches are going really well at the moment. Our lighter style Rieslings working well. And we're also noticing there's a real merging of the categories. So people are looking at, we're experimenting with one of our wines, the Tailor Made, where we're making cocktails, wine cocktails with them, and making people not feel that wine is by the rules and you have to have certain wines with certain foods, but to be confident to experiment and to enjoy the interaction. We've been having a lot of fun with just merging the category. Another thing we've done that's been great for the experience side of thing is we've developed wine time online. And here we're not really telling people, oh, this is our wines, you should be able to taste this in the traditional ways. But we've been making it fun where we've been incorporating cheese making with enjoying our wines, the best cuts of meat with a local butcher, and also the food combinations so that people can actually experience it and then they can send their questions online to us and we can answer them on the spot.
Beautiful. Mitchell, and I think it goes without saying that some of the changes that have been taking place more recently have huge implications for the long-term market in wine. I'm interested to know what you're seeing happening for you and being so deeply involved in the Australian wine industry. What do you think the future looks like? And this could be for wine, but it could be through the market itself. It could be through logistics. It could be through the retail market. We're getting a lot more off-premise consumption at the moment because people aren't going to venues. So what does that sort of the entire supply chain and wine market look like in the future? Just some of your comments, because it's a big question otherwise. So just some of the things that you're pulling out that you're observing.
Yeah, at the moment, there's been so much disruption to the supply chain, and we're certainly noticing it in the on-premise and restaurant channel. So we've been trying to work with our on-premise customers to really help them through this crisis period as they start to rebuild their businesses. What we're finding, though, is people do have a lot of time at home to entertain. So while the on-premise channel has been restricted and restrained, we're finding people are actually going towards brands that they really respect, that are authentic, have a good story. And we're noticing quite an upkick in the bottle shops and the off-premise section. So this is really creating a bit of divergence at the moment, and particularly with the interruption to both interstate and overseas travel. Areas like duty-free in the airports, that's been completely disrupted. So I think it's going to take quite some time to repair and to get the confidence of people going back into the on-premise area and also to be confident in travelling again. I think we're going to have a bit of a domestic travelling boom soon when we get these state borders opened up. So I think that'll be good for the country. But at the same token, a lot of people are looking to wine. It's that little luxury that maybe they can't afford to go or aren't allowed to go on an overseas trip. But if they can get a bottle of wine from a place that reminds them of a great experience, I think that's an important thing that people will start to look. So we're even noticing at what we call the prestige end of the market, people are really sorting out those special vintages that mean a special occasion for when they're all together celebrating that while they're not travelling, they can certainly be together with their family and friends enjoying some good wine.
How much of that do you think is going to stick in the long term, Mitchell? Things like those, not necessarily limited releases, but things like that we're doing at the moment, or that the industry is doing at the moment to adapt. How much of these sorts of things do you think is going to stick? What is going to stick?
I think what will stick is people will learn that when they travel, it will need to be for a purpose. So I think it will take quite some time for us to jump on planes and go to other parts of the world on a spur of the moment area. They'll realise that they can build some relationships through digital channels. So I think it'll be a slow build until we get back to that stage. I also think people will understand value more and they'll really enjoy exploring the category and being confident in what they've experimented with. And I think when it comes to wine, they will look for quality, but also quality with great value. So I'm seeing those trends starting to emerge. And also there's a lot of wine that really doesn't come from any great region or have any great character. So I think people over the education part will start to sort out where the quality is and move away from probably some of the other nondescript wines.
I'm interested to know what you feel has made Taylor's such a successful Australian wine brand. There are bits in there around, and I've heard over the last few answers, around your ability to innovate and even the culture that I can feel that you create within the team to have that ability to voice ideas and then that you're willing to receive them. And that in something similar to your words there was that they can change the world, they can certainly be rolled out, and we've seen that happen. So what has, in your opinion, made Taylor's such a successful Australian wine brand?
We've been around now for 50 years, which in the industry terms, we're proud to be a member of Australia's first families of wine, but yet we're still relatively young for a wine business. But I think it's been the pioneering, innovative approach that my grandfather had in being very entrepreneurial in starting up the business from what he saw in the market. And my father, as he said, he could see fashions changing and saw an opportunity to join the wine industry. And it is now a core value that we have within our business. We call them the Ripper values, but innovation really is a piece that we do reward and talk about, but that also we recognise it when we're celebrating the achievements of the team in Taylor's, because we still feel we're a small, nimble winery that have to adjust to a marketplace that is continually changing and getting faster and faster with its approach. And that's what I've been saying to everyone at Taylor's is the coronavirus is just accelerating the change that was already happening. So it's not really this is going to interrupt us and we'll all go back to normal. It's just an accelerator on the journey we've been.
Mitchell, to take a step back and look at it a little more philosophically, there's this adage of the first founder creates the business, the second one carries it, and then when the third, this is with generational businesses, and then the third one is typically where the business fails. I'm interested to know how you've carried forward that legacy. You talk about your grandfather there and the sort of legacy that he created. How are you maintaining that connection with his philosophy and his values in order to defy that adage?
Yeah, I think it's very important because, I've had that saying said to me so many times, you're the third generation, so it's up to you to spend the money and destroy the business. So I've always taken the struggle that both my grandfather and father went through and felt I've been privileged to be able to work on their initiative, but to also take it very seriously that I'm just a lean for the next generation. So we talk about it with the family. We are just custodians of a great vineyard, a great business, but we really want to pass it on in better shape to the next generation. So I think with that approach to look at the good work they did, but to also look at building and having that continuous improvement philosophy is very important. And that's why I love the wine industry, because it really is a very complex business. We're farmers, we're winemakers, we're manufacturers, we're exporters, we're marketers, but we have this continuous chain. And we always say to the team, we're only as strong as the weakest link in that chain. So it's always analysing what we're doing and making the business better continually.
What a fantastic way to describe that as well. And there's a lot of wisdom in there for some of the listeners who might be carrying on those generational businesses, or they could be even managing or C-suite execs for larger businesses, thinking about how they can carry that legacy forward from what originally created that entity. And some of those things, and then there must be these sorts of conversations around, were the things that actually created the success of the business originally, were they the things that have then built the business over the years, and could they be the demise in some cases? And that's why it's around this importance of having such a broad why around the business story and what unites the company and the individuals within it. I guess that's what makes it so important to make that clear to everyone within it. And it sounds like you're certainly doing that for the business that you now run and that you're carrying the torch for. Mitchell, what is your biggest challenge at the moment? What is it that you're experiencing friction around?
Yeah, big challenges ahead is what will the road look like and what are the scenarios you've got to plan for. And I describe it as there are a lot of forks up ahead of us on the road, and there are also a lot of storm clouds gathering. Big challenge for us is the Chinese market, a great market for Australian wine, our largest export market. And now we've got the challenge of the Australian-Chinese relationships being on tenterhooks. And we've got the threat of maybe we've had an investigation call on our industry, and hopefully the right decisions will be made about the anti-dumping allegations. It does put a lot of uncertainty into the market. Also, I think the overall economy, the consumer confidence, where we've got government support that has been injecting money to keep the economies going, it's how we wean off that. And what will that do to a lot of our customers as people start to wean off some of the fiscal spending? So some big challenges there. And like I say, it's the whole fashion part of the business too, where we're looking at planting new vineyards, new variety, and planning some of these, but making sure that the wine business is still seen as a very popular beverage that people love to explore, relax with, and travel to be able to experience.
Fantastic. And I'm glad you brought it back to that fashion component there as well, because to touch back on the innovations as well, to tie those two in together, what is it that you have seen in a younger market to appeal to that younger, not just, I guess, the palate, but the interest, and how are things being done differently at Taylor's to appeal to that younger demographic of drinker?
Yeah, I think we've looked at having lighter, friendlier, fresher styles. We're very proud of the traditional label that we have and the support that it has, but we've also developed our tailor-made range of wines. And with these, they're lovely rosés, Pinot Noirs, light white wines. And we've also explored letting people play with them a bit. And so we've developed a series of wine cocktails that we do with the tailor-made range. And we find we're getting a lot of good buy-in with that and good insights. And also, we like to take the mystery away from wine. And what we've done is we've done a lot of events that are on Facebook, Instagram and that, where we just do Q&A and talk about some of the evolving trends and some of the things that are good to serve with wine, so that people don't feel that it's an intimidating product, but it's also a product that no one's got all the answers to. And it's a lifetime journey of just exploring the different styles and the excitement that goes with wine.
Yes. Mitchell, I'm interested also to know, how do you navigate these sorts of problems? You must have people advising you from all sorts of different areas of the business and possibly external parties or consultants there. But how then have you navigated your career within the business to come to do what it is that you're doing now and then pioneer things from the position that you're in? How do you navigate that? Do you have people around you that you look to? I guess you must have gained a lot of advice from your dad as well going through that. But is there someone or a group of people that you take that advice from?
Yeah, there is. My father, has been a great role model and has been a very encouraging and also a very humble man who said, I don't have all the answers, but go out and find them. So I've always explored my network. And being in the wine industry, one thing that the family have always appreciated is the brilliant people that work in the industry, not only in Australia, but all over the globe. So we have long-time family friends from the Champagne district, from Burgundy, from Bordeaux. The Bordelese inspired my grandfather. So it's developing those friendships and relationships. And in the wine industry, I've had some great mentors where we've brought people in to help improve our quality, seen how we've always been wanting to be better than we currently are. And they've been very generous with their time and knowledge. Being on the Wine Australia board, it's great to be with some of the older legends of the wine industry that have done some very exciting things in pioneering wine techniques, like Brian Croce. He's one of the fellow board members and a good friend. On the technology side, Ron Potter was a brilliant man who developed breakthrough fermentation techniques that we used in the early days and have taken going forward. So I think it is exploring your network. And in running a family business, all family businesses are different, but I find my colleagues in Australia's First Families of Wine, they've been running successful family businesses for over 150 years. So I love sharing wines with them, sharing ideas with them and exploring ways where we can work together, particularly in our marketing efforts, and, make the wine world a more interesting area. So really do encourage that sharing of ideas and being a contributor to the wine community, and also developing all the new innovations that are still yet to be implemented and discovered.
What a fantastic way to round out the episode, Mitchell. I just have one last question for you today, and that is, who would you like to hear on the show?
Oh, wow. On the show, it might be a hard one, but I'd always love to hear from Nelson Mandela, a character like that who really had to struggle, but never lost sight of what they wanted to create. While that also, I'm very passionate about the arts and sports. So I always like to hear leaders in those fields. Someone like a Leo Schofield or a Roger Federer. That'd be very interesting to hear from.
Beautiful. Look, thank you so much for your time on the program today, Mitchell. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on and learning a lot more about the wine industry and what's made Taylor's such a successful brand. Thank you.
Thank you, James. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat.
This program is hosted by James Henderson, with technical production by Jake Olver. Voiceovers were by Angus Brennan and Shim Phelan. Thanks to our distribution team, and a special thanks to you for tuning in every week. This program was produced by H Media. We'll see you soon.